my soul starts to linger. It's home, I know. If you catch me daydreaming now and forever, thoughts are carrying me along to that place we call home. Down that long road, throughout life we roam. Wherever I go.
If you ask someone from around here, they'll probably tell you they were born in Logieville or Douglastown or Nelson. And then they'll tell you that those places are nearby to the bigger places like Chatham and Newcastle. But invariably, they will come back to telling you that they are from the Miramichi, a river in New Brunswick, a valley land, a place forever. The Miramichi, to those who have known it, is a place of the heart. In this sketches, we'll try to give you a sample of what I'm getting at. We'll uncover the legacy of Max Aitken, Lord Beaverbrook. We'll dig through the past with an archaeologist. We'll talk to an author, a humorist, and a folklorist. We'll travel the river with those who live it. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Miramichi. An early summer morning. James Denny, Jr., as he's known, heads out with Clifford Gillish to tend the nets of the Salmon Project, nearby to Beaubears Island in the Enclosure Provincial Park. Micmac, from the community of Eel Ground. Their ancestral connection with salmon and the river is documented at more than 2 millennia. Downstream, the day begins for the 15,000 residents of the surrounding urban centers in Northumberland County. Varying in size, the towns along the riverfront share a common bond, a heritage which is perpetual. The Miramichi, its influence, its people, are a theme that author-humorist Herb Curtis draws on for inspiration.
Growing up around here, I think we did have one movie that was shown on a Saturday night in the village. But other than that and the occasional dance, there was very little to do as far as recreation went. So we, all us boys and girls too, turned to the river. That became our theater, our park, our playground, everything. And, you'd pick your girlfriend up on a Saturday night and go for a canoe ride. And it was very romantic. I remember you didn't know whether you were in love with the girl or the river.
A number of local archaeological digs have given insight into the civilizations that have called this place home. One such undertaking at the Enclosure, a site at the confluence of the southwest and northwest arms of the Miramichi, presents an intriguing picture of the transitions of settlement here. Mark Lavoie.
It seems to be a meeting place for everyone. It seems that about 2,000 years ago, the ancestors of the Micmacs were here, and they were using the point as a place for short-term visits, like camping overnight, fishing expeditions, probably hunting expeditions. And we have some evidence of their presence through the stone tools they left behind.
Miramichi, believed to have originated from the Montagnais word, meaning land of the Micmac. Nearby, at Red Bank, the most prehistoric site in the Maritimes, the study of camping and ceremonial sites has contributed to the understanding of the way of life of ancient inhabitants along the river. cultural preservation. Behind archaeological work, buildings, and institutions, preservation of folklore, New Brunswick's most prominent benefactor is honored in Newcastle's town square. Born in 1879, the son of a church minister, Max Aitken, Lord Beaverbrook, spun a local law career into a life as financier, politician, newspaper publisher, a member of the British cabinet during World War II. Beaverbrook brought Miramichi lore to the world. Susan Butler.
As a young boy on the streets of Newcastle, he used to hear about the song The Jones Boys, and apparently there were two boys that had two small mills, and it was situated up by the Repat mill today, and the railroad came right through their property, and that's why it's called the Jones Crossing. But this song in particular went places because Beaverbrook took it back to England with him, and during the war, it was used as an icebreaker, so to speak, and he had taught it to Winston Churchill, and he in turn taught it to Molotov, who I guess he sang it with such gusto that he thought it meant the downfall of the capitalist system.
Characteristics of a river people.
From area to area, even if you go sometimes as much as a mile, you'll find a whole different accent. So it's very hard to narrow down. I suppose maybe it's because of the little settlements. You would have a Scottish settlement here, and an Irish one here, and a Dutch one, you know, down the river. And, but you'll find some really strange accents, and they're wonderful. You know, they're all different and distinct in their own way. My people would talk very nasal. You know, maybe you can hear it in how I'm talking now, but they'd say things like, "G'day, boys, how's it going today?" You know, stuff like that. "Boys, I got an awful big fish this morning."
Those blessed bards, though dead, do live again. At St. Michael's in Chatham, a marker to one of the family of rhymers. The poet of Renouse, Michael Whalen, typified the storytellers for which the region is renowned.
Back in the late 1800s, when he started writing, Michael Whalen, he used to compile them in little pamphlets, and he peddled them on the riverbanks of the Miramichi and sold them for 10 cents a piece. And of course, a lot of homes in the Miramichi had these songs, and then one in particular that he wrote is a tribute to the old pioneers. I shall sing you a song, it is not very long, 'tis a song of the long-vanished years, of the heroes of yore who have long gone before, 'tis a song of the old pioneers who sailed o'er the sea to the Miramichi, who left their dear homeland in tears, to settle them down in the country and town, our fathers, the old pioneers. Their small homes they reared.
It was from a mix of European influence that beginning in the mid-1700s, the character of the valley began to be shaped. The Miramichi became the ground in which the hopes of many were rooted.
The earliest European presence that we have been able to identify is the Acadian refugee camp, which was established here in 1756 and was pretty well abandoned by 1760. So these are the people that were not expelled during the Acadian deportation and made their way up to the Miramichi from Nova Scotia and other parts of New Brunswick and tried to make a life for themselves here at the point.
And it is here that a picture is painted, a picture of perseverance in the face of unending adversity, a picture of Acadian survival.
We're talking about 3,500 people at the point and around the area. We have evidence in one of the excavations that we completed last year that they cooked about 7 pigs in one one fire, one hearth, and consume them. And these pigs were juvenile, so they weren't allowed to grow to maturity. So we imagine as soon as the supplies got here, people used up those supplies, and they were always longing or asking for more.
The detective work of archaeology opens windows on past centuries. With the knowledge gained, comparisons of such things as trade and lifestyles can be made.
We have some finds like this piece of Italian pottery, which was traded during the last 10 years of the French regime. And we find it in the St. Lawrence Valley, at Louisbourg, and on some Acadian sites. But it's a type of pottery which was made in northern Italy, and which is only available for, let's say, from 1750 to 1760. And after that, you don't see it anymore. So that's a good chronological indicator of an Acadian presence here.
The 1800s would see a new wave of settlement and unprecedented growth on the Miramichi. The impact of the Napoleonic Wars in Europe would give rise to an economy built around the resources of fish and lumber, laying the foundation for the communities that exist today. This heyday would forever leave its stamp. A shared program between the people of the Eel Ground Band and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. Present-day efforts are designed to study the cycle of the Atlantic salmon. Once threatened by commercial overfishing, the salmon in recent years have augmented their numbers. Junior's work with the project involves cultivation, as well as the tagging of the fish. Tagging allows biologists to track the patterns of movement and the habitat of the species. What has been learned is that after spawning, the young smolts will spend 2 to 6 years in the river before heading to the cold waters of Labrador and Greenland. The good news, a high percentage will return to the Miramichi to continue the cycle of reproduction. The arrival of the next generation began with a Scot, William Davidson, who heralded a new era in the region of the enclosure and Beaubears Island.
People of Scottish ancestry and people from New England established themselves in locations which had been abandoned or vacated by the Acadians. Business people and farmers and quite a variety of people came to try to make a life for themselves again. And it wasn't through persecution, it was more through a dream of personal gain that these people came here. When Davidson came here, he had the grand scheme of blocking the river off with large nets, which he did. When the Micmacs noticed that there was no fish coming upriver, they came downriver to see what was going on, and they got into a horrible argument with Davidson, telling him that if he didn't take down his nets, something pretty bad would happen to him. And so he took down his nets, and they had, let's say they made some sort of treaty where they scheduled the river, and but the Micmacs knew when the fish ran, so well, Davidson didn't get too much salmon that year, and the Micmacs got a lot.
The coming of Davidson in 1772, followed by a string of like-minded entrepreneurs, fired a dual economy. Fish and lumber were exported in Miramichi-built vessels. It is estimated that in 1819, nearly a quarter of all British timber ships were loaded along these shores. Jack Ulloch.
At that time, Rankin was building ships in Cunard. They were about the two main shipbuilders there, but Peter Mitchell and Harding, there was Abrams, a lot of different ship manufacturers here. Joseph Russell established a shipbuilding firm on Beaubears Island, and actually at one time they couldn't turn the ships out fast enough.
There used to be water boats on the river that supplied the ships in port with water, and one was noted for its speed. So Martin Sullivan decided he would write this song about the bluebird. And he used, of course, an Irish tune, a variant of the Wearing of the Green, and I'll just give you a little bit of it, how it goes. Oh, the ice upon the Miramichi will melt before the sun, and Captain Moore's motorboat will soon be on the run. For ½ cent a gallon, the ships he will supply, and the captain says he'll run her till the tank runs dry. Till the tank runs dry, till the tank runs dry. And the captain says he'll run her till the tank runs dry.
Some were of fine workmanship. Others were built enough to get the load of lumber over to England, and the ship and the lumber was sold as one piece, and they tore the ships apart over there to get more lumber. At times, there was hundreds of ships in the Miramichi. When Ritchie bought the Rundle Mill, the mill was going 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and they would have as many as 20 sailing ships anchored in the river waiting to be loaded.
But the steamships were coming, and the Miramichi shipyards were unprepared for the change. Early this century, the yards fell silent. Brian Kelly inherited his ties to the Miramichi and its tributaries. It's in the family. Following in the footsteps of Grandad James, life in the region is the season of the Gaspereau. This Saturday morning marks the last of the 4-week period when the herring-like fish are netted. The workboat of the Miramichi, the flat-bottomed scow, is designed for stability and maneuverability in the harvest. Gaspereau ascend streams to spawn in the spring, unlike the salmon that spawn in the autumn. Salted and stored until the fall, the fish then find their way to markets in Haiti. The turn of the century saw the Miramichi become host to the American sport, the prolific salmon waters appealing to anglers internationally. An industry was born around the quest for the catch and the one that got away. The area carries on this tradition. Some claim the pool is everything. Others say it's the lure. There is the Green Machine, Casaboom, Conrad, and Coachman, Buckbug, Butterflies, and Bombers.
Salmon, they come up here to spawn, reproduce, and then they go back to the sea. They go to feeding grounds off the coast of Greenland, I believe. And then they find their way back, and they'll come back to the Miramichi, and they'll spawn again right in the very same rock, in the same bed where they themselves were born. So these areas where they rest, they're usually, they must have some attraction to the salmon, you know, the current, particular current, water temperature, certain boulders that they like. Those areas become pools, and of course, fishermen, you know, soon recognize the areas because there are fish there, and they're rolling and they're jumping, and so that's a salmon pool. And of course, the fact that there's one rock that's more productive than another deserves a name. Where did you get those fish? Well, I got them right behind the Papakenan Rock, or right off of Charlie's Point. How's the fishing?
Oh, one this morning.
Yeah, that's good. I got a nice one this morning. 20 pounds or so.
20 pounds?
Yeah, nice one.
My word.
We'll let him wonder.
A river in New Brunswick, a valley land, a place of the heart. 220 kilometers of waterway, of lore, of legend. The Miramichi.
These people have something in common. They were trying to make a life for themselves by being able to make a living in one place and doing it in peace. So I think that a lot of people that came through here probably call this place their own, in each in their turn. Yeah. So, and now people of the Miramichi still call this place their own.
I think it's like one big family in a way, and the bloodline that runs through everybody, not necessarily are they related, but they are because of the river. You know, you meet somebody in a service station, in most cases somebody would say to you, boy, it was a heavy rain we had last week, or I hear that the house burned down in Fredericton or whatever. Here they say, big run of fish on, you know. Got a 15-pounder this morning, that kind of stuff. Everything is the river.
I know from speaking to people that the Miramichi doesn't leave them, although they leave the Miramichi. Sometimes when I stand and look out at the Miramichi, you just wonder if it would open up and could tell you story after story.